Good evening. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Today is September 7th, 2017, the Environmental Conservation Board meeting. Tonight, we're going to be holding a public hearing for one application. The Peckham Materials Corporation, located 1181 Route 6, for a tree cutting permit, approximately 390 trees. Do I have a motion to open up the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. I would ask you if you could sit over there. If the people have questions for you, you can address it and speak into the microphone, please. And
Can I suggest, people probably are not aware of what's happening.
Yeah, I'm going.
He makes the short presentation of what's going to happen.
we could give it to him. I could give it to him in a skinny.
Okay.
Basically, what this application is for, folks, is that over at Peckham Materials Corp., they would like to cut down and harvest approximately 390 trees located on their property, on the hill. And this is part of the New York State DEC tree thinning guidances, where they do this periodically to thin forests out so new trees grow. So they're going to do this based on that, the DEC premise. Could you please state your name and who you're representing?
Christopher Prentice, Lower Hudson Forestry Services, representing Peckham Materials.
Okay.
And yes, you are correct. It's properties managed under the DEC 480A Forest Tax Law Program. It is a program that basically encourages forest management for long-term forest production, prevents subdivision, prevents development. Basically, the idea of the program is to keep forest as forest.
Okay. And what we've done for this so far is, just for everybody's information, is we have gone through the application process. We have reviewed all the materials that Mr. Prentice has submitted to us for this. We've conducted a site tour of the property to come up with the way we want some of the work done. And we've also had the town forester go out there to meet with you to go over the scope of work. So, and that's all been it's all in the file. If anybody's had a chance to come here to look at it, everything has been reviewed, and we're just holding the public hearing as part of the tree harvesting permit application. So if anybody would like to come up and address the board, please come up, state your name, your address, and let us know what's on your mind, because you're here for something.
Good evening. My name's John Kugler. I live at 248 Sheer Hill Road. Moved up here with my wife about 11 years ago from New York City, born and raised in Queens. My wife's from Brooklyn. Part of what drew us to this area, and particularly to my house, was the open space, suburbia, and the fact that we have no neighbors behind us. So my house is located, like I said, at 248 Sheer Hill Road. I'm at the southern end, adjacent to Peckham. I had an opportunity to review the maps and look at the minutes from the last few meetings, and my understanding is there was some back and forth in the beginning about how many trees were actually going to be harvested. Originally it was like 140. Now it's like 391 over like 41 acres. Yes. Which is about, I guess, like 10 trees per acre.
Trees per acre, about.
The map that I had seen showed a red area where the harvesting was going to take place. My concern is, I know years ago, I heard, prior to me moving there, they were looking to harvest trees, and I know there was an opportunity where they had done it, to possibly sell off part of the property to build, whether it was for commercial purposes or for private homes. My other concern is the harvesting actually going to be done in that red boundary area, or is it going to be done somewhere else?
Do you want to answer that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, the trees that are marked are in that red boundary area. The DEC controls the program, so it's not the landowner's choice of, you know, oh, I feel like harvesting some trees somewhere else. It would be considered a violation of the tax law program, and there's a fairly stiff penalty for violation. So the harvesting is going to occur where in that red area. That's what was stated in the management plan for the property, and that's what the DEC is expecting, is that harvest to take place in that red area.
Is there a time frame when this is going to start, and about approximately how long it's going to take?
It should take about 3 to 4 weeks, all weather dependent. In terms of when it's going to start, the likelihood is it starts sometime in the winter. They typically like to log in the winter due to frozen ground, prevents soil erosion, soil rutting, things like that. So the likelihood is it will be sometime this winter.
All right, thank you.
On that note as well, I'd also like to point out that there is a town forester who will be monitoring the project as well, and he's the one who also gives approval for starting and at the completion of the project, reviewing it and making sure that the ground in the area that was forested is back to as natural a state as possible.
Anybody else?
He could stay there. Can you say your name?
Bob
Fenninger.
Fenninger. And your question is, how many acres is he harvesting on? Yeah. 40 acres?
41.
41 acres, the total property is just over 95 acres.
Okay.
You know, Chris, could you give just an idea for the people here, like what happens over the next 3 to 5 years after we harvest in this area of 41 acres?
Well, basically the idea of the harvest is to remove mature and over-mature trees, and trees that would, if they were allowed to grow, they wouldn't really amount to anything. Either they'd be crooked or rotten, or they're showing signs of damage from, say, insects or disease. So I kind of use, I guess, the adage of, you know, when you plant a garden, you sometimes have to pull out some of the seeds that you planted so the other ones can grow. It's generally the same idea, is you thin out the forest. It allows the retained trees to increase their vigor. It gives them more growing space. It allows them to uptake more water, more nutrients. It allows them to get more sunlight. So, like I say, the long-term objective of this program is to keep forest as forest. There's not going to be any clear cutting. There's not going to be any development. It's a fairly stringent program. It puts a deed restriction on your property when you enroll it. So you can't just decide in 5 years that, well, I saved taxes over 5 years, I'm going to do a subdivision. There's fairly strict penalties for that. So, you know, the nice thing is if you live next to somebody who's in 480A, there's a very, very good possibility that it's going to be forested for the next 50 or 60 years. So.
Can you also give a brief overview of the timeline of when you start actually logging to when you end it, like trucks, how will the operation actually commence? Will you be going from front to back? Just how it will impact the neighborhood around there?
Well, typically they do start in the back or the furthest point away from the landing or loading area. It's done with chainsaw and what they would probably have is a cable skidder, which is basically a large farm tractor with a cable winch on it. And like I say, 3 to 4 weeks is the typical time for this, this amount of trees, this amount of volume. You know, that's saying that if we have decent weather, you know, if it rains like it did yesterday, then obviously there's not gonna be work for a few days during that period. You know, in terms of days of the week and time, it's all stated in the permit. The town has acceptable days and times where they can start and stop. You can't work on holidays. I believe you can't work on Sunday, if I remember correctly.
Something like that.
Yeah, so it follows the town's code and of work hours and schedule.
When you haul the logs out, are you gonna haul them on Drew Road or off Route 6?
They're gonna go onto Route 6,
On Route 6?
correct?
As part of their permit, they had to check with the highway superintendent, that if the highway superintendent deemed that a bond was required for the road, they would have had to put up a bond for the road until after their work was done. That if they caused any damage to the road, they would have to repair the road. But you've contacted Mike Simone already.
Yeah, the highway surveyor has submitted a thing saying he doesn't want a bond.
Right,
Basically, he doesn't want a bond because it's Route 6 and he's not responsible for Route
That's
6.
a state road.
It's a state road.
right. So the state was contacted, and it's an existing commercial entrance. It gets used, you guys probably know better than me, probably 15 times a day by heavy trucks. This job is 15 total loads over the course of 4 weeks, so it's a fairly light traffic load as compared to what's already there.
You said that approximately 10 trees per acre,
It's a little less.
a
Yes.
little less than, in an acre, what's left? How many, what's the percentage that's left? Or how many trees would be left, approximately?
In a forest like that, typically there's anywhere between 100 and 130, 140 trees per acre. So essentially you're removing 10, 12% at most, so it's a fairly light thinning.
This property was logged a number of years ago. How many years ago was it? And do you know how many trees were taken out at that time?
I don't know how many was taken out. I believe it was 2001, and it was less than 5 per acre because the town gave an exemption. If you harvest less than 5 per acre, you don't have to get a permit.
Oh, okay.
So it was fairly light then as well.
So basically, it's a thinning out process then?
Correct.
And there's no special trees back that we're thinning, they're all deciduous type?
They're all deciduous, you know, second, maybe even third growth. You know, most of these areas in Putnam County were cleared 100 years ago. Sheep farming, charcoal factories, the acid factories. You know, if you look at pictures from the Catskills and this side of the river, you know, you can see for 10 miles, there wasn't much left on these hillsides. So
Right.
you're looking at second growth, maybe even third growth now.
Has the town done this in any other area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Off of Drewville Road.
Drewville Road,
We had a,
DEP.
yeah, DEP's done it over on Drewville Road, and we've had one over by
The
Boston Road.
The gun club.
The gun club did it, and there's, for the life of me, I can't remember, over off by Austin Road area, there was a gentleman owned a large piece of property, he thinned it out next to a home. We went through the process, same process, and when the forester left, they were told they did a good job. So it was, you know, we take this seriously, Chris will tell you, and we, you know, we go through the papers, we go through the stuff, and, you know, we have the experts who look at it too for us. So, you know, we don't make these decisions blind.
There was one down the road from you, Putnam County Fish and Game,
Michigan, right.
which can't be more than a mile down the road from you. That was about 4, maybe 5 years ago. And part of that harvest was salvage from Hurricane Sandy. So, and, you know, we had to go through the same process for that as well.
Okay.
My name is Karen Blefkin. I live on 262 Sheer Hill Road. I'm directly behind, okay? I've lived there over 40 years. Over the years, it was Camarco's before, but now there's the smell of the asphalt that's coming through. You cannot open your windows in the morning, you can't open your windows at night. So by taking some of the trees down, I don't have a problem with that, but I think taking some trees down is gonna make the smell coming in more for our homes. I was curious if there's any way Peckham could maybe turn the wind to go another direction or something. I don't know. But is that, taking that many trees down, is that gonna affect more of the smell?
Where are you located?
262 Sheer Hill Road.
Here's a map. Could you give me an idea?
I came to look for the map today, and they didn't show me.
Here's the map. Where do you live? It may not even, the total maps are old, so they may not even be on there.
So this is Route 6 right here.
Route 6.
This is red.
Six.
Where's Peckham, right here?
Yep, Peckham's right
I'm
there.
right here.
So you're right next to the water there.
On this side. So Route 6, you come up Sheer Hill.
You're on Route 6?
I'm on Sheer Hill, directly behind. If this is the asphalt plant, I'm directly behind. And
No,
the lake
That would
is
be,
no, no.
that would be up over here. So this is Lake,
Lake Hassie?
Cassie.
yeah,
Okay.
and then this is Route 6 going around it. Peckham is right about here.
Okay.
It's within the red
And
lines.
this would be Lake Drive, but would this be a crossroad?
No.
Am I
I'm
off there?
sorry, it's very hard to
Okay,
understand.
this is
Yeah.
Blueville Road, okay, here where it meets Route 6.
Okay,
This is
so
Blueville.
you're coming down Route 6?
Right.
And there's a road, you turn up Sheer Hill?
No, that's the entrance to Peckham. Okay, it's right in this area here. Okay, Sheer Hill is over here.
Ah,
Okay, so this is Sheer Hill.
Right.
Peckham is directly on there like this.
This line indicates where Peckham is, okay? And
Here,
the asphalt
this is
plant is up in this area here.
This is better.
So if you're on Sheer Hill Road, this is the same,
so here's a housing development here,
Where's Peckham?
right? This is Peckham right here.
right here.
And these are the houses?
Yes.
Right here.
Okay. Now, just to let you know, the red area, okay, if
Where the trees are.
they're claimed, that's where the trees are coming down. No trees are coming down between you.
You and the plant.
If they follow the plan, no trees are coming down between you and Peckham, the asphalt area, asphalt.
I'm saying that's,
No
So
trees.
this is closer to Louisville?
look at
Yes, Drewville Road is closer, yes, no doubt.
So it's not the house.
No.
Nothing from this red line over, that's okay.
that's the silo where they're loading.
All right, and my other
where
I
question,
don't know if that's gonna help you, but.
well, if it's, that's not my area, and like I said, I have no problem with the trees, like, I'm just curious because the smell, because everyone.
You should call, what my suggestion would be, is call the plant, see if you can talk to them, and if not, see if the town engineer or building inspector, would-
Code enforcement officer.
code enforcement.
If there's an odor, then if it's pervasive as you're saying, then you may want to, as Bob has said, you may want to contact the plant first and see if you could have that resolved that way. If not, then you should talk to the code enforcement officer, who's Mike Cornazza.
Okay.
Okay, if you think it's pervasive.
And as far as the trucks coming out on Route 6, will they be coming up Sheer Hill Road to cut across at all? Because that's an R-restricted
No,
road.
I can't say that with any definitively, but I doubt that that's the way
Yeah,
they'll
they're not
go.
gonna come, they'll probably come outside, out the plant,
Out the plant,
right onto Route 6.
Once they're on Route 6, they're not going to go to Route 6.
Because they could cut across to go to Croton to 684 that way, because there is a lot of trucks coming in and out of there all day, and it is an
If you
R-restricted.
see one going by with large logs
Okay.
on it,
No, I'm just curious,
call
just to keep
call
the
the
thing,
town hall immediately, because we'd like to know too,
Okay,
okay?
all right, great, all right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Anybody on the board? Okay, so with that then, I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Made by Nick, seconded by Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now, Chris, with that, we're gonna go ahead and go through the motions for the tree cutting permit, okay? So what we're gonna do is, we have attached conditions to the permit. I'm going to just go through them, and then we'll vote on it, okay? So I'm just gonna make the motion, gentlemen, and then read the conditions, and then after that,
Nick, I think, wants to add one.
Yeah, I'd like to add one
and
document
what
to the
would
file.
that, a document to the file?
Yes, so this is, so we've called out in the thing you're about to read, following the BMP, the state forestry BMP plan. There's a specific section in that that I wanted to call out and make sure is clear for the public and also for ourselves for peace of mind, and that is the hazardous materials section handling them. Namely, this is pertaining to in case there's any accidental spillage of oil or hydraulic fluid or anything like that. Considering that this is a forested area, I want to ensure that that you're going to be following the best practices. And again, this is mostly for us to just make sure we're crossing all of our T's and dotting our I's. But specifically, I wanted to make sure that that you're going to use approved absorbent material for the spill kits. This is particularly important because if you use something like kitty litter or some of the other materials, it's not very effective on soil and doesn't leach oil out of the soil should there be a spill. Now, of course, anything over 5 gallons spilled does need to be reported, but anything under can be handled with a spill kit. So I'd like to submit that to the file. And the second part of this also is if you're storing machinery on site, I think we've called this out previously.
Yeah, we want to store it on poly.
Right. You store it on plastic, on poly. If you have absorbent material, absorbent beds, that's fine as well, but it's got to be stored on something. And they'll probably have at the plant some of this material already, considering how much machinery they have. But any skid steers, anything brought in for this should definitely be stored on that overnight.
Okay.
I want to,
And if you'd like, you can have a copy of this too, but I'm sure you have a copy as
Yes,
well.
I have that.
All right.
I
add
guess
it
the only question that comes up is, the skidders have tire chains on them. They're gonna just tear that poly one pass,
Well,
so.
just go over it slowly. They'll rip it up, but at least it's underneath the body of the rig, right? Or
Yeah.
just pull it under it,
Yeah,
just so
the
that
poly
there
can
is
go
a leak
underneath the
under
engine.
motor.
Okay.
That's all we're looking for.
Worry about the
just-
wheels.
Yeah.
you want to write that out as one
I
of the
did.
conditions?
I did. So,
What, the poly?
I said, store all equipment on poly at night.
Okay, well, how about what Nick said here? I
Provide
think you
spill
should,
kit on site during work,
well, to follow the,
and then.
where's that thing you had? Okay, to follow the hazardous materials procedures as outlined in the DEC New York State Forestry BMP Field Guide Best Management Practices for Water Quality.
Okay.
Go look at number 1, you'll see that's, okay?
Yep.
Bless.
Where'd you get that BMP,
It's right up there.
Number 1.
Number 1, look at number 1.
It's the third line.
okay. All right, so
It's quoted there.
do I have a motion to grant the permit
What do we want, okay.
to Peckham Materials Corp.? the
Should we
20
read over the
I'm go-
the conditions first
Going.
before we vote on it?
I'm gonna make it as part of the conditions.
It-
Part of the,
We may want to change something. as
Okay.
we go along.
We're gonna go for a permit. We're gonna hear the conditions, Chris. 1, all disturbed areas, for example, skid rows, forest roads, and landing areas shall be seeded after completion of harvesting in accordance with the DEC New York State Forestry BMP Field Guide Best Managed Practices for Water Quality, which states seed should be immediately mulched with hay or straw at 2 tons per acre, approximately 2.5 40-pound bales per 1,000 square feet, 2.5 40-pound bales. 2, all water bars shall be located and constructed in accordance with the DEC New York State Forestry BMP Field Guide, Best Management Practices for Water Quality. 3, in accordance with Section 142-8D4 of the Town Code, where slopes exceed 30%, logs should be winched off. All seeding materials and methods must have prior approval of wetland inspector / the town engineer. All conditions recommended by Forester Doug Ramey in his letter dated July 7th, 2017, shall be followed and shall be considered part of this permit. 6, no trees within the buffer areas, some 100 feet, others 150 feet shall be cut. 7, contractor shall provide required insurance document as part of application, workers' comp and general liability. 8, applicant shall obtain highway bond prior to start of work as required by Highway Department. An email from Highway Supervisor has been submitted. No work during rainfall events. 10, work may commence upon approval of Town Carmel Forester. 11, Town of Carmel Forester to inspect the site upon completion of all work and submit written report confirming that all conditions of the permit have been satisfied. 12, silt fencing. If the town wetland inspector / engineer or forester determine in the field that silt fencing is necessary during logging operations, the owner / logging company shall install such silt fencing. 13, store all equipment on poly at night. And 14, provide spill kit on site during work. Follow New York State Hazardous Material Guidelines, BMP Field Management,
BMP is Best Management Practices.
Field Guide.
Can I ask about one of the provisions?
Sure.
Number 9, no work during rainfall events. Quite often, loggers will go into the woods and just cut trees, not skid. You're preventing all work with that sentence in there?
So why don't we just modify
Yeah.
no work during, no
No,
tree
No
removal,
hauling.
no hauling.
No hauling or something, right, that's good,
No hauling or
that's fair.
dragging.
You should
I
be
mean,
able to cut.
you know, no skidding is
Right.
typically
No
what
skidding,
they would
Okay,
say.
no skidding, okay. Or we could just say, okay, that's right, that's fine. That's good. It's fair.
Okay, that's fair. So with that, I am going to make a motion to grant a tree cutting permit to Peckham Materials Corp., located 1181 Route 6, Carmel, New York, with the attached conditions that I just read. Do I have a motion?
make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So you have a permit, we just have to do the, we'll do the short form environmental assessment. Who has a clean copy of this permit?
Here.
How's that?
You can sign this, can you sign for the owner?
No.
Okay, so then I'm gonna leave this with Rose, and then you guys can go, I'll just take a picture of this, we'll send her this. I just initialed the ones we added. This way we're all good. Okay? You have that little stapler or no?
No.
Yeah, I do.
How about a paper plate?
Inspector Gadget over here. I got a paper clip. Okay, so just have the applicant come by and, do it,
Okay,
all right? So, you're done.
fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody in the audience. Thank you for coming. You're more than welcome to sit through this if you want, but
It's not that exciting.
it's not that exciting.
Going to sleep early.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Okay, will the proposed action create material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No.
No.
Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? No. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area?
No.
Will the proposed action result in adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
No.
No.
This is nothing to do with the board. Person.
Okay,
Did you,
What?
you're being recorded.
I'm being recorded.
Yeah. So you may
We'll be
want
done in
to,
2 seconds.
yeah, let's finish this, and we,
Do a
I
sidebar
just
with,
wanted to know if you have a father named Edward Barrett.
no,
No.
no.
Did he die or what?
I'm Barnett.
Oh,
Yeah,
Barnett.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's all right, I've been called
okay.
Barrett up here all the time.
I went to school with Eddie Barrett, over there in the old school, a long time ago. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No.
No.
Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies? No. Public-private wastewater treatment facilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? No. No. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna?
No.
No.
Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No.
No.
Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resource or human health?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 o'clock in the morning.
I want to talk to him.
When I talk to him,
Yeah, when I'm done.
okay.
When I'm done, I'll come out there.
This was a nice write-up.
I'm gonna add what you guys did.
All right. Vince, thank you very much, and everybody, thank you for your help in preparing this, the conditions. Nice job, I think we covered, I think everybody left here.
I'll be attentive
Satisfied.
for everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great,
I
very
think
nice.
everybody will be satisfied in the neighborhood that they're doing this work, and hopefully we've set a standard that,
You know, let
we
me
can
just say
follow.
one other thing. I'm just glad I went out for the field trip, okay? And because this property had been logged, it's been logged 15 years ago, so it's a long time ago. But the primary concern that I had with this was the skid trails and the roads that they were gonna be building. Now, they're gonna be building a road, and that's still a concern, but I think we've addressed it. But what I'm getting at is that it's 15 years ago, but I'll tell you, you go out there and you look at where their old skid trails were, and et cetera, you can tell where they are if you look carefully, okay? But, and that's because the real big trees are gone, okay? There's nothing in, so you can tell where they are. And they're gonna use basically the old ones again. So but you look at what they used for skid trails and roads before, okay? It's, outside the growth being just new growth, okay, for 15 years, you can't see anything. It looks perfectly okay. you know?
Good.
And I'm
So
glad I
that's
went
just
out there, because as long as we tell them, make sure they don't create any erosion, excessive erosion and such like that, that's what's gonna happen.
That's the program, that's working, it's working, that's what it's doing.
Working.
It ain't broken.
Right.
All right, so the last item is meeting minutes. I cannot vote on August the 3rd. Do we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes for August 3rd, 2017?
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
I recuse myself. On August 17th, 2017, Vince can't vote. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes for August 17th, 2017?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Okay, with that, I'm going to say goodnight. Everybody, thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.
Hey, you took a photo of the permit, right?
Yes.